and welcome back to the Squirrel Heed YouTube channel. And today what I'm going to look at is some of the prospective people that have been put forward for the England manager's job, obviously since the complete failure of England at both the World Cup and also Euro 2016 under Roy Hodgson, and obviously him being, I would say, he walked before he was pushed. Let's just say that anyway. I think that was quite obvious that it was his time to go. It's just he was never going to take us very far. And let's just, anyway, what I want to do is have a look and see, just give my reaction to, this is from the telegraph.co.uk. They've put together a short list of all the people that have been linked with the job moving forward. Obviously there's some quite prominent ones with the one we've got on the screen right now anyway. So we're going to kick off obviously with Sam Allardyce. Now Sam Allardyce, it says, a very safe pair of hands, having succeeded at pretty much every club he has managed, players love playing for him. That masks a lot of the things that we know about Sam Allardyce. Sam Allardyce, styles of play, we pretty much know over here that the style of play that he's going to go with, you would, instead of having like your Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy, maybe a Daniel Sturridge, Rashford, such like that, your first choice striker then becomes Andy Carroll or someone like that. That becomes your first choice. Now I think they're very good as an option, and I think they are a very good player overall when they're on form. Just like any other players, when they're on form they can be very, very good. But as a first choice, you know, then the teams that you're coming up against know to stack the defence very high and get physical with someone like Andy Carroll, block him out the game. They know you're going to be playing one up top and probably five behind instead of having people in on the wings, or at least people that can maybe adapt to the wings. Obviously you've still got Sterling, who's still got to develop. We can't forget that he is a young player, and while I might not like him as a person, you know, or the personality that he gives out anyway to the public and stuff like that, and obviously being a Liverpool fan, don't think that he was very, you know, didn't treat us very well after the platform we'd given him as a football player. He's still got to develop. He's still a very young player. He could come good. You never know. You could have him running the wings and supplying, possibly. But, you know, he's, it says a very safe pair of hands. Yes, very safe pair of hands if in a league you're wanting to stay maybe just above like the drop zones, or in that mid-table, but like just breaking into mid-table, being maybe 11th, 10th in the league or something like that. He can save you from relegations. He's proven that as well. I don't think he's ever been relegated as a manager. Players love playing for him. I think some do, some don't. It does say cons. His time might have come and gone. Retains the reputation of ugly football, which is not entirely deserved. And I would agree with that, because let's have a look at the way that Portugal won Euro 2016. They weren't blasting teams away. The only team that they really kind of like scored a lot of goals against was Hungary, who scored the equal amount of goals. So I mean, saying, you know, ugly football, things like that for tournaments, I would say as a pro, if you're looking at it like from a league, not so much so. Would I go for Sam Allardyce? Personally, no. I think there are some better options. It just, all of this comes down to, would those better options want to come to do the England manager's job, and all the pressure and eyeballs that are on that situation, would they want to work with that? It all comes down to the availability and obviously the people wanting to come in and do it, and then it probably will narrow down from there whether it comes to someone like Allardyce. Not someone I would personally go for. Would I be disappointed if we've got him? A little bit, yeah, because while he is a little bit better than Roy Hodgson, I would say is a little bit better. Well, probably quite a little bit better. Probably quite a bit better than Roy Hodgson, but not to that drastic stage where you're like, wow, he's going to carry us forward and galvanise the squad and the coaching and everything like that. And he'll make you tough to beat. He'll make you pretty damn defensive, solid defensively and stuff like that. And you know, but moving forward, not one that we should really be going for, because we need to show a bit more ambition than we've shown in the last 6 years, even under Capello. No, it's definitely time that we move on, and for me, I wouldn't be wanting to go for a Sam Allardyce. Next one that we've got coming up is one that I would actually prefer, because this doesn't tell the whole story. Pros: Jurgen Klinsmann has turned USA into a strong force during his 5-year spell, but it fails to mention exactly what he did with the German team. Now, anybody that doesn't know, Joachim Low, or however you say his name, like Jurgi Low, whatever his name is, who is the current Germany manager, who is credited for them winning the World Cup and such like that. It all started years ago with Jurgen Klinsmann, and Low was his assistant manager. That's how I've read it anyway. I haven't actually, I read it a couple of weeks ago, something like that, when the news first broke of Roy Hodgson being sacked and a shortlist being drawn up. So obviously looking at that and the work that had obviously started with the German squad, bringing those younger players in, but making them play as a unit all the time in all of the tournaments, and just building and building and building. And it's obviously, look at Germany. Apart from this Euro 2016, when obviously they haven't won it, they've been a solid unit. Maybe not so much in like friendlies and such like that, but when it counted, they were solid at the back, and they were quite clinical, like very, very precise and clinical in their finishing and things like that, in their attacking play as well. The only con that they've actually managed to come up with is he still has 2 years on his 1.9 million a year deal with the USA. Now, obviously, he's done really well with the USA. I think he got to 2 semi-finals in his reign so far, which is, well, it's better than what we've done. So, I mean, we can look at that for sure. Some people have been saying he hasn't won anything as a manager and stuff like that, and you can kind of point to that. But eventually, a manager who hasn't won, has to start winning, or they would fail. Who knows if this is like one of those where, if he came into the England job and maybe not like win tournaments and stuff like the stupid ambitious target set by the FA or something like that, or whoever it was, who was setting a target of winning one of the World Cups in like 2022 or something like that, which is ridiculous, because that's not going to happen. Winning the World Cup in 6 years from now, that's not going to happen. And I think that was actually made at like before the World Cup 2014. So, I mean, bold prediction. One I would like, because I think he's got quite a progressive way of working. I think he wants to see like that youth core, and you think of the youth core that we would have as well. So looking at like defenders like Chris Smalling, things like that. You've got your right backs and left backs and stuff like Nathaniel Klein. You got Danny Rose, Kyle Walker, Bertrand, maybe not the youngest, but even so, you've got a nice core to work with there. Forster, who I would say actually becoming England #1 pretty soon, because I think Joe Hart's pretty, I don't know, he's pretty shaky. And at the moment, Man City, it sounds like, obviously by transfer rumours and stuff like that, that they're not very confident with him either, and looking into bringing like a Marc-Andre ter Stegen or something like that. Then obviously moving forward, you've got like a Raheem Sterling, Ross Barkley, Eric Dyer, Del Ali, all these types of players to mix in along with some of the more experienced ones like James Milner, who will probably not be in international football maybe after the next World Cup, or even maybe before that, might actually pull out, retire, whatever. I don't think he would retire, but that might be his last one. Stuff like Jordan Henderson as well, who hasn't really performed very well of late. And then obviously moving forward as well, you've still got Harry Kane. Daniel Sturridge has got good age on his side. I think he's only 25, 26. Rashford, you've got great talent there. You've got great young talent, and I think someone like Jurgen Klinsmann, proven in the job that he's done with the German outfit, obviously before they actually went on to win the World Cup under Lowe, I think that would be a very good shout for me personally. That would be my personal preference if it could happen. That I would go for Jurgen Klinsmann, and not just because his name's Jurgen. The next one we've got here obviously is Eddie Howe. Now Eddie Howe, I was a big fan of his style of play when he came into the Premier League. As it says here, one of the brightest managerial prospects in English football, and it's been little short of exceptional. The only thing that they came up with was obviously his experience is limited just to Bournemouth. Not necessarily a bad thing though, because what you've got here is you've got a young, vibrant manager who is tactically sound and knows how to work with limited resources and things like that, and knows how to work, basically get a team that everyone was predicting was going to get relegated last year, or pretty much everyone was predicting was going to get relegated last year, and they did very well. They did very well against some of the bigger teams. Arguably, they should have maybe had a draw or won against us last year when we had a Coutinho goal that was actually should have been ruled offside go in, and they had a goal that should have stood ruled offside, and we won the game 1-0. Things like that, they had some little things go against them. Obviously the injury to Callum Wilson didn't really help, but he managed to fill those spots very well and managed to be quite solid throughout the campaign. Tactically I think something like that. I think someone like that, if he'd had a little bit more experience, maybe a couple more years, maybe you could be looking at Eddie Howe in a couple of years, or maybe 4 or 5 years. I would maybe go with maybe 4 years or something like that. Get some more experience, see how he develops with Bournemouth, whether he moves club or anything like that. But I don't know if he would, and just give them a chance, because that's the thing that where we are falling down as international football, is that we've always gone for like the older, what we say is the more experienced manager, like your Fabio Capello, Roy Hodgson, stuff like people like that in recent years, and it hasn't paid off clearly. And what you've got to look at as well is you need someone who's vibrant, who could inspire you, and bring some like actual tactical knowledge of how to, okay, if this isn't working, let's switch to this, or I can switch out the formation, or switch out how you play, how we're going to attack this, or set up different teams, instead of just going, I'm going to try and lump in every single good player in their prospective position, and we're just going to see what happens. That can't happen anymore. You've got to have good tactics and good setups against the teams that you come up against. And I think in a few years, Eddie Howe would be a very good shout if he continues on the path and progresses like he has done so far with Bournemouth. Ugh. If you want for me, I have nothing against Steve Bruce. I really don't. I think he's an underrated manager who has sometimes he's come short in things like transfer markets and hasn't really had the best choices in transfer markets, and that hasn't really, it just hasn't worked out for him. I think he's been relegated maybe a couple of times. I can't say for sure how many. He's brought teams into the Premier League as well. He knows the English game, and he has fire in his belly, whatever the fuck that means, because I have no idea what fire in his belly. So what, he's going to shout at you a lot? That's not necessarily Steve Bruce's game. The thing that I like about Steve Bruce is that he's very honest. If his team have performed shite, he just comes out and says, those lads were shite today. They really were. They were bollocks. They were shit. Obviously, he doesn't use that language, but that's exactly what he says, and that's exactly what we need. Instead of we're sick of excuses. We're in a day and age now where excuses is just not on. We are in a day and age these days where honesty is everything, and it needs to be, and especially with something like the England managerial position, where it was the highest paid at Euro 2016 and the worst performing as well. You cannot have those two things happen, and I think that's actually changed the FA's way of thinking, where they've said it's going to be, the wage is going to be something on like it's going to be agreed on performances and achievements and results and stuff, which is fine, but how about you just have a set wage and just live with that? Anyway, that's another thing anyway. Cons, hasn't managed a top club and didn't represent his country at senior level. Representing your country at senior level, I don't think that. I think that's not relevant. As we've seen in any type of management, you don't have to be a good football player to be a good coach. We can look at Jose Mourinho, wasn't necessarily a good player, I don't believe, but look at him as a manager. I'm not a great fan of Mourinho, just obviously his personality. It's not one of those that I would be drawn to. Jurgen Klopp as well. Don't think he was the very best player, but he's very tactically, he's unbelievable manager. So lucky to have him at Liverpool. Loads of managers, they're just a couple of examples. There's loads more, that you don't have to be a good player or one of the best players or represent your country and stuff like that to be a good manager. So I'm not taking that con seriously, unfortunately. Not one I would want to see, because again, the way that his teams play football, and obviously how he's been in football, he's taken clubs down, he's brought clubs up, but he's not really broken into like those upper parts of a league and stuff like that. Not one that I would want to see, unfortunately. And it's nothing against the guy. It's not for the England job. No. Guus Hiddink is obviously another one who's obviously just brought Chelsea back up into the top half of the table, and he's obviously departed with Antonio Conte taking over the position there. And I think he did really well with Chelsea. He did a job that was going to be very difficult, taking over from Jose Mourinho and a fan base that really loves Mourinho and really wanted to see Mourinho stay on and get them out the shit that they were in. Instead, no. They cut ties and they went with Hiddink, and I think he was unbeaten for quite a while as well, like getting some draws and building the confidence up of the team, and that's all really good. He's again, it's one of those things though. He has vast experience, as it says in the article anyway, of coaching Holland and South Korea and all this lot and stuff like that. And he's got very good credentials. I think better credentials at club level. But age 69, it's not that he might have missed the boat. It's the fact that I think people are still going to hinge on what happened with the Holland team before coming into the Chelsea job and stuff like that. The Holland team was just, I have no idea what happened to that talent level with guys like Robben and such like that. How you can have guys all playing together and just not even get to the Euros. I mean, that's inexcusable, and that's, for me, I think that is why I wouldn't want to go for him. Not just his age, obviously, because you can't be ageist in this day and age, but that just doesn't bode well when someone's had that kind of failure with such a talent level, and then you come to the England talent level, who, while we've got some talented players, nowhere near having the depth of talent that the Holland team have. Not one for me, I'm afraid, no. Still considered one of the finest thinkers of the game. Has been out of management for some time now, and his previous stint as England boss did not end well, which for me completely negates the fact that he's a fine thinker. Everybody can be a fine thinker and can talk a good game. Anybody can talk a good game. If I actually went and researched stuff, I could probably talk a good game. And I researched some stuff, but I'm not into doing stats and things like that, and how many touches someone should have on a ball and all this sort of business. It's not for me. I just like to speak about what I think. Being a good thinker of the game, it's so vague to what that can mean. Is it what he sounds like on punditry? Because Gary Neville was an excellent, probably one of the best, if not the best, pundit of Sky Sports, of any sports outlet that was shown on TV. He was the best, in my opinion. And then, obviously, he went to Valencia. Obviously, English first language, trying to communicate to foreign players and stuff like that don't necessarily speak English and stuff like that. Didn't work out for him. Bombed pretty badly for him, I would say, as well. And Valencia is a pretty big club over in Spain, as to go over to and just kind of think, this is going to be my first foray into management, and you're just going to, I like the challenge of it. That's absolutely fine. And obviously people look at it like, well, he talks a good game, and he's obviously, he's assistant coach with England and such like that as well. So he's got a good shot. Not for me. Did all right in some cup games, and then got destroyed by Barcelona. I think 8-1 over 2 legs. This is what I mean about thinkers of the game. Not for me, Glenn Hoddle. Obviously, you look at what happened with his first stint as England boss. Did not go well whatsoever. Not one that I would like to see. Stay behind the microphone. He sounds good behind a microphone. Don't want to see him around the England team. Harry Redknapp. What can you say about Harry Redknapp that probably hasn't already been said already? For me, if you were to go on the back of the season when he finished 4th and obviously missed out on Champions League because somehow Chelsea managed to win the Champions League that year against Bayern Munich, and Harry Redknapp ended up getting sacked because they didn't have Champions League, although he'd fulfilled his target and got top 4. Tottenham went on to lose Gareth Bale, blah, 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 blah. And they ended up sacking Harry Redknapp. That would have been the time to bring Harry Redknapp in, because that was when he was at his absolute top. That was when he was at his top, and they totally missed the boat on that one. Now, no, not for me. I think it's the level that he's coached at and what happened with his coaching, like QPR and stuff like that. The FA missed the boat on this one. They made the wrong appointment when they made Hodgson, and it should have been Harry Redknapp. Really should have been, because at that time, the way that he set up his teams and the way that they played football was brilliant. They got into the top 4. It was unfortunate they didn't get Champions League. That would have been the time to go for it. I just think that the time is gone now, and I think, unfortunately for Harry, I don't think they're going to come back in for him, and I think it would be a mistake if they did. Arsene Wenger is a weird one for me, because you look at the legacy he's got with Arsenal now. He's won a few titles back in the day when they were at Highbury, and then since then haven't necessarily done so well. They've won a couple of FA Cups and such like that in recent years, but they had quite a barren spell, but he was always able to get into the top 4, which is always, and that's a massive achievement. If you look at how the top 4 has changed over 20, 21 years and stuff like that, Arsenal have always been there under Arsene Wenger, whereas other people have dropped out. Liverpool dropped out quite drastically. Man United have dropped out in it as well. Chelsea have moved up into it. All the teams in between that have maybe been relegated or lower down in the leagues and such like that. And that's really great. You know, he's got something very, very solid at Arsenal. His pros, in my opinion, he's quite good working with youth. Not so much though. He brings a couple of guys in, kind of like how Brendan Rodgers did. He brings a couple of guys in who have like a goodish game, and then he sort of seems to rely on that a little bit. Like if he's got some injuries going, so I think Alex Iwobi may have come in last year due to an injury to someone and actually seemed to play really well. Joel Campbell was someone who was playing really well and kept getting taken out of the team. There's little decisions that he makes that I do question how he sets up teams against certain teams. Like he's got that. Obviously, he's quite arrogant in the way, and I don't mean that in a negative way. He's had so much experience and quite a bit of success and continued success if you consider being in the top four as success, which I would say it kind of is in a way. It's not a trophy, but he's always in the top competitions every year. They're always there and thereabouts around the Premier League title sort of picture and stuff like that, but not making a very thorough threat like Tottenham were last year and unfortunately dropped away from it. As it says, the chances of him leaving Arsenal are very, very remote. And if he leaves Arsenal, I think he would retire, in my opinion. I think he's maybe 69, something like that. Could be wrong on that age as well. Like Dimitri Payet, and possibly keeping hold of them for the season ahead. They've got the Olympic Stadium to look forward to. There's so much to look forward to. Why is he then going to turn that down and just go, I'll become an England manager? No way. There's no way. That's it. That's all I got to say on that one. Sean Dyche. Haven't seen a lot of I haven't seen any of the Championship. I'm not going to lie. I was going to lie then, but no, I haven't. Didn't see any of the Championship last season. Not because I'm ignorant to it, it's just I've never, watching the Premier League takes up enough time as it is. Then going and watching Championship games and stuff like that is just, I've got a lot of things that I do, and I'm not one of those that sits about and watches football all day. I can't do that. I like moving about and stuff. The new Eddie Howe, apparently, his achievements in leading Burnley to the Premier League again were undeniably impressive. Problem with that was Burnley did very well in their first season in the Premier League in terms of scoring goals. I think Danny Ings got something like 18 goals, and that was what led Liverpool to sign him. But they still went down despite scoring goals because they were leaky at the back. Obviously, Burnley since then have had they smashed the Championship big time. Could they? I think it would entirely depend. You could look at maybe Sean Dyche in a couple of years and stuff like that and see how he does with Burnley, the same as maybe Eddie Howe with Bournemouth, and see how he does results-wise and how they actually do. Can he stay in the Premier League this season? Because the Premier League this season is going to be fucking ridiculous. With the amount of money that everybody has now got, it's going to be a free-for-all in the most competitive league in the world. Not necessarily the best, but in the most competitive league in the world, I would say. Not one for now, but it's one of those you've got to see how he develops and how he actually handles the Premier League second time round. What? No way. Phil Neville? No, we've just got rid of a Gary Neville, an assistant manager. And I don't think... Yes, again, look at it. A promising coach. Impressive thinker about the game. What does impressive thinking mean? Does that mean that you think really impressively? Or is it that you are a great orator of the game? Is that what they're talking about? Your thinking is obviously quite high level, and the way you speak about the game is brilliant and really quite attractive. Again, great. That's awesome. You can talk a good game all you want. It's what you do. It's what you do. Actions speak louder than words. Actions will always speak louder than words, especially when it comes to something like this. His managerial experience is nil and would probably struggle to win over a sceptical fan base who remember harshly his lows with England rather than the highs. And not just that, again, he was part of the managing team with Gary Neville doing a brotherly partnership over there, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work. Needs so much more experience. Needs to actually go out and manage on his own. Take the leap of faith. Forget about the player that you were. Yeah, when you've been a player like he was, obviously with Man United and obviously Everton as well, when you've been that high level of a player, you've got to forget who you were as a player. because you have to prove everything all over again. And that's how it should be. You have to prove everything all over again as a manager, because you haven't done it as a manager. You did it as a player. You were good at being told what to do and coached how to do things. Now you have to go and do that for a whole squad, for a whole substitutes bench, for youth teams maybe. Needs to cut his teeth somewhere else for a good couple of years before he could even be considered. And everything I just said then about Phil Neville can apply to Gary Neville. I'm not even going to dig, I'm just not even going to go over it all again. It's pretty much take what I just said for Phil Neville, do the same for Gary. Alan Shearer, highly respected within the game and one of England's greatest ever strikers. He could take on a coaching role under the new manager. Okay, I could see that happening. Like, I don't know where Alan Shearer is with like coaching badges. Is he doing them? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know all of that. I know obviously a couple of retired professionals have gone on to do coaching badges and stuff like that. I don't know about like Shearer. I don't know if he has. Obviously Newcastle's leading goal scorer and the Premier League all-time leading goal scorer, and probably untouchable on that front as well. Only previous managerial experience was a brief stint at Newcastle and they got relegated. You couldn't really say that that was his fault, because it looked like they were gone. They were going to be going before he came in anyway. It's kind of like Aston Villa this season, when, Aston Villa were just gone way before this. And that was kind of like what it was for Newcastle. So you can't really say that it was his fault. But since then, hasn't ventured into any sort of managerial positions as far as I'm aware, and I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. He's kind of mainly stuck as a pundit. Not one that I could see coming off, and not one that I would like to see come off, especially for someone who's such a legend of the game as well. Laurent Blanc, having obviously been sacked by PSG, has the confidence to work with big personalities. We don't really have big personalities, I don't think, and we shouldn't. Not after the way that the England team have played in this year at the Euro 2016. May not see international management in his future as yet at 50 years old. Fair play and fair point. He managed PSG. Obviously, I think he got stacks of trophies and stuff like that, and obviously just couldn't get the Champions League, which is why he's gone. I don't know. What does that mean? It's a bit of a non-starter for me, because I don't think he'd really want to... Maybe his goal later in life will actually be to manage France, which would make sense, maybe, but not for me. Not for me, no. Not for England. Rafa Benitez, very good manager. Liverpool fans obviously know the affinity that we have for Benitez, and everything that he did for us was absolutely fantastic. Did the very best that he could at Newcastle. You can't take it away from him for getting relegated. That was out of his hands. He should have been installed 5 games before, at least, to give him a shouting chance. And I do believe that they would have avoided relegation, but I don't imagine. I think when it comes to it, I always think that people of like the nationality that they are would want to actually manage the national team that of the country of where they're from. His being Spain, obviously Vicente Del Bosque has retired as well. It just seems the way to go. It just makes sense, and I don't think it makes sense for him to come in to the England setup. He's obviously managed a good couple of English clubs. He obviously managed Liverpool, got us the Champions League. Chelsea, got them Europa League, I believe. And yes, no, he did get Chelsea the Europa League, and they still hated him. And he almost turned around Newcastle's season, almost single-handedly, by the way he changed things, but don't go for the England job, Rafa. David Moyes is the last one on the list here. Did a brilliant job at Everton. Nobody can take that away from him. He had, I think, 11 years at Everton and made them very solid, made them very, very tough to beat. Didn't necessarily always play the most expressive football, but when he had expressive footballers, he did use them quite well. Didn't necessarily get the finishes up the table that he would have wanted, or Everton would have wanted either. Cons, scarred by his time at United. See, I still think that whole thing is unfair, but I can't really comment on it. Obviously, being a Liverpool fan, anything I would say would just get shot down anyway. So I'm not even going to bother. England fans might possibly accept a Scot as their national team manager. I don't care where a manager comes from, as long as he's up for doing the job and up for doing it in a way that's going to be exciting football. That's all I want. And for me, not entirely sure that exciting football would come from David Moyes. He would make you he's like a massive upgrade on like your Steve Bruce and your Sam Allardyce. He would make you so solid at the back, it would be unreal. But going forward and scoring the goals and stuff like that, not entirely sure he would be able to do it. Not for me, I'm afraid. So I think to top it all off, this is the man that I would be wanting to go for. I think I've summed it all up in what I was saying earlier. I don't want it to be Allardyce. I've just got something about it being Allardyce that he started to really alienate the West Ham fans like near the end of his tenure. And I think when they won a game once or something like that, that they weren't expected to win or something, and he's going like this to the fans as if to say, so what you saying now? What you saying now? You shouldn't be taunting your own fans. You don't want to taunt your own fans who are booing you already. Just not for me. I would obviously much rather be going with Klinsmann. That's my personal opinion anyway. I just think he's got a proven record of obviously starting you, and whether he's the one that actually moves you forward and wins the tournament, who knows? That might not be the way that it goes, but that is progressive in my eyes. Starting with like a core of youth and a little bit of experience, and then tweaking that over the years, and you look at how Germany are now. Could he work that magic with England? He could. It could all blow up in his face, but trying something different, it's the old saying, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so far, we're shit. We need to try something new. This could be the way forward. Anyway, those are my thoughts. You may completely disagree, but I would like to get your thoughts on who you think should be the next England manager. It's an important one, you know, in our country, who should actually lead us forward. Ones that I didn't talk about. Gareth Southgate. Didn't talk about it because I just see Gareth Southgate being a bit more of a yes man, and we don't need yes men. Brendan Rodgers was mentioned. He's at Celtic. That's a non-starter. Most of these as well. You know, people that are at clubs like Eddie Howe, all those guys, they're at clubs anyway. They probably love unless they fall out of love with the club that they're at. They're probably going to stay there, and they're non-starters anyway. These are just my opinions. I like getting my opinions out there and getting your reactions to it as well, and just seeing what you guys think. I just like, let's bounce some ideas off and see what you guys are thinking as well. So if you've enjoyed the video, please drop a like on it, subscribe if you're new around here, and I will catch you later.